concessions to commercial insurers and commercial pharmaceutical companies. So you can be more or less socialist or capitalist in your approach. And it's commodification. I think that term is really, Polanyi's term is taking us to, and you know, Esping Anderson talked about decommodification. He came up with an index that, you know, the welfare state was decommodifying certain essential aspects of the life course.
Okay, if I go. Mark? Name?
Mark Levinson. You know, it's interesting. Take the two Michaels aside. The American on the panel spoke about Europe, and the European on this panel spoke about America. And I'm not sure that, you know, what they said applies to the other part of the world. So, for example, you know, what Sherry said, which I think, you know, may be accurate for Europe, I don't think is true in the United States. When, like, our critique of Obama, that, you know, Obama, you know, we're frustrated, he hasn't gone far enough, he could have done a lot more. And it wasn't a lack of ideas. You know, they know, people in the government know what they, you know, could have done. We, I think, know what they could have done. It's really, you know, it's a question of power, and this is kind of, you know, Michael's point. The lack of whatever you call it, a movement or political pressure from below pushing Obama, you know, is just striking. I mean, we have, you know, 10% unemployment now, and you know, there's a deficit commission. I mean, it's absurd. It's otherworldly. 10% unemployment. You know, so the question of power is, you know, we hosted recently a group of Brazilian trade unionists here, and they were asking us about Obama, and we're telling our frustration with Obama, and they're telling us their frustration with Lula. And they said they met with, you know, Lula recently, and they were complaining to Lula about the lack of progress in Brazil. And they said that Lula told him, he says, well, you know, you elected a president, we didn't have a social revolution in Brazil. And the same thing is true here. We elected a president, and yet politics, the kind of balance of power in the society, you know, it appears has not, you know, shifted that, you know, that dramatically, and it kind of, it shows itself in policy outcomes. I mean, just the one, you know, difference is, I'm thinking about Chris's comment. This last election, you know, in the United States was, you know, was kind of more engaging, at least, you know, on the Democratic side, and more, you know, just the organizing involved and the passion was so. I mean, there was a movement kind of quality to this election, which then, you know, kind of dissipated after the election, and that's you know, a shame if it's only during election campaigns that we can generate that, you know, because aftermath, there's always disappointment. We knew Obama, you know, was bound to disappoint. And that's what's happening now, and that's not necessarily the fault of Obama. It's the fault of the, you know, our institutions on the left and the ability to, you know, make a political price for that.
Quick comment. Just a really quick. One of the things that about Obama, I think, that fooled people was, I think that was based on a sort of movement sense that not just a campaign, but also there was a sort of something of a liberal movement that began arguably with Move On, you know, in the late 1990s to oppose Clinton's impeachment, and continued on against Bush. But it was very much about, let's get these bastards out of office and get some really good people out of office. And Obama was sort of the anti-bastard. He was the, you know, the shining hope. But he was still this hope that socialists are not naive enough to think that, you know, one man can make all this difference. And that was part of its drawback, I think. Todd?
I hope you won't think this is Todd Goodman. I hope you won't think this is nihilistic, but I wonder what your reactions would be collectively to the following caricature of the panel.
Caricature of the panel.
Of you all.
The
cartoon. Robin gives us an end without means. Sherry gives us something that lacks both an end and a means. Michael Walzer offers us means without an end. And the best I can do for you, Michael, is something like an end, a sort of self-dissolving end into other ends. I don't have a question.
What ends or means, like to comment? Okay. Yes, over there. Name?
Larry Galata. Is the panel, or are you as the historian on the panel, embarrassed by...
I think actually all historians.
Oh, well,
Robin certainly is.
well, okay. But in your presentation, you sort of went from Eugene Debs to Michael Harrington. Are you embarrassed by Norman Thomas and his legacy?
Nope.
That's question one. And question two, the 1948 campaign, they asked Norman Thomas if the Democrats were carrying out the socialist platform. And his answer was, yes, but on a stretcher. Now, in the popular imagination, socialism exists. It certainly exists for the Tea Party people. I've never felt part of such an enormous movement since they brought socialism to the media consciousness, declared everything social. But, you know, Ronald Reagan did the same thing with Medicare. In 1948 also, the SP and Norman stopped running for president. And you had two successive campaigns thereafter which were de minimis. There was a realignment strategy which occupied the energies of the American socialists ad infinitum to move into the Democratic Party, to be the left wing of the possible. To what extent has moving into the Democratic Party blunted the appeal or the marketing of socialism? That's question one. And question two is, the right believes there are 78 count of socialists in the U.S. House of Representatives, led by Senator Sanders. No mention of the effect, the success of the realignment strategy in this discussion. No comment on Norman's. Well, Norman would get 150,000 votes running for mayor. He was the third party of the United States. No comment on that. Deb's peak year was 1912.
I'll have to cut you a little short because
You can cut me short. I don't have a theoretical question. I just have, are you embarrassed by Norman Thomas and his legacy?
I'm not. No, I'm sorry. I didn't. I'm sorry I didn't mention him. Obviously, Thomas and other Thomas-style socialists were very important in, I think, in helping to make the Democratic Party a more social democratic party, but more of one, obviously not one, and that was part of his comment in 1948. But
can I just chip in
sure.
with on sort of historical accuracy, and you know, one shouldn't be too pedantic about this, but I think it's worth registering, and I mean, I thought Sherry gave a tremendous account of the impasse of social democracy today. But if you'll forgive me for saying so, I think you slightly caricatured the past, because if we look back at the European or the American past, socialism was actually more diverse than one might think, and it had anticipated some of our issues, although it addressed them in its own way. I'm thinking, for example, you know, there was a feminist component, quite a powerful one, including in the 19th century American international movement. The impact of the international was quite great here in the United States, and there was Victoria Woodhull and Lucy Parsons, and you know, this issue was around and was debated here in New York City. They had a magazine that sold almost as many as our, in fact I suspect rather more than our socialist magazines do today. And the Erfurt program of the German social democracy, I mean, they were quite strongly committed to defending the